A master called together a few young men of this generation and spoke to them, saying, "I gave your great-grandfathers a time of despair and poverty and global war. They were strong and victorious and built an empire greater than any other. But they were terrible fathers and raised entitled sons and daughters of rot who inherited everything through no courage of their own. To those rotten sons, your own grandfathers, I gave abundance and wealth and stability. But they pissed it all away on debauchery and sexual revolution, establishing many idols and slaughtering tens of millions of children in sacrifice to their appetites. One generation fought against the perpetrators of a great Holocaust. The next dishonored that victory with an even greater Holocaust of their own children. The children who did survive, your fathers, carried on the sexual descent of their parents into new madness and new disease, piercing and inking their skin like death-worshipping pagans as they did, establishing special days of pride to celebrate the debauch, slaughtering more children and castrating and poisoning others, claiming to be creators when they were destroyers, mutilating the young and calling it acceptance. All these generations I have judged, and am judging. Their madness now is only a taste of my wrath." The young men were afraid and asked the master why he had called them and why he was telling them these things. "Because it is now your turn. I am giving all of this chaos to you," he said. "Your inheritance is a world of crumbling false gods crowded with blind and mad worshippers. I am entrusting you with a world of empires built on cracked and heaving foundations. The time of your inheritance is near. You have only a little while to prepare yourselves. Seize this moment of chaos and build me a world of sanity and righteousness. When I return, I will judge what you have built for me. With so much rubble to work with, I expect great things." The master turned to leave, but the young men begged him to wait. "How can we do this?" they asked. "There are hundreds of millions of unbelievers in our nation alone and only a few of us." Their master answered, saying, "I am not a hard master. You will have the truth and wisdom if you desire it. And you may each choose one woman to help you. That should be enough. Go now and build New St. Andrews College. Carpe Chaos."
So good.
I feel like we were just here.
Last week, we've been this because we've done 2 shows in a row now. That's what it feels like.
I know. I was complaining that we weren't doing a good job.
We were being
now I'm like,
consistent.
I feel like we were just here.
Life of family.
Yeah, I'm proud of us.
Yeah. Hey y'all, welcome to Water Break. It's good to be with you. Is it this camera or this camera? It's this camera. I bet it is. Yeah, the far one. Yes. I want to look at you, not at some random place over here.
I know.
Thank you for joining us. If you guys want to be in a conversation with us, reach out to RenchMedia at gmail.com. Follow Annie on Instagram, me on Twitter. Those are the best places. And of course, please go to our YouTube channel and like what we're doing and subscribe. Our YouTube channel is actually youtube.com/ I think it's Gabe or Gabe Wrench or something like that. It used to be Water Break TV, but then Neil was like, no, you need to do your own name. So that's what it is.
Oh, your own. Oh, because that's what people are more likely to look up.
That was Neil's decision.
I don't understand, Neil.
So we left it into the producer's hands to make that decision. And then, of course, download our app. Our network app is the Fight Laugh Feast Network. You can go to any app store and download the Fight Laugh Feast Network and not just get Water Break, but get access to a bunch of shows that are going on, from Joseph Backholm to Eschatology Matters, of course, to Cross Politic, and a bunch of stuff we got going with Knox Unplugged and so forth. So thank you for downloading the app. Great way to catch up with us also. For this week, my voice is doing okay.
You sound better than last week.
We got a lot of basketball games this week, and then next week we go to districts, and we got more games there. So I thought next week was going to be a little slower week, but
I know, but
not anymore.
I know, but at least the end's in sight.
I'm coaching my 7th graders on Saturday, and I got 3 different games, and I got a different dad for each game.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Because I got to be back. So now they changed Saturday's game towards varsity only. And originally I was going to be there about when JV started.
Oh, yeah. So you're only going to make it to the first one?
I'm going to make it to the first one, and then Jim Miller's going to coach the second game, and then Brandon Ginn's going to coach the third game. So
thanks, dads.
Our 7th graders are going to roll with it. It's going to be good. Okay, so the topic for this week is, I got it had on my phone here.
What did we name the show?
Actually, Carter has the name on it. What did we name the show? We named the show Questions We Were Asked Most: Weightlifting, Fat Loss, and Exercising During Pregnancy. So these are
So basically, it's just the questions that I've gotten most frequently
over a long time.
Was your idea, and it was really funny to write some of these down because there are some questions that I have been asked, like I can't even count how many times.
Well, and it's funny because like in some sense,
always the same stuff, you know.
In some sense, like health is kind of dependent on your body, but a lot of the questions can be similar or the same.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's just hilarious. There's just certain questions that you just get asked constantly.
And you've been doing this for 20-ish years.
Almost 20 years. Yeah. So it's a long time.
As long as our marriage.
Basically.
We're going to be 20 in March, our marriage.
Yeah. Our marriage is turning 20 years old.
Not quite old enough to drink yet.
Oh my
Not true. We've been disobeying the law. Our marriage has been disobeying the law. So you've been doing this for over 20 years, and you've kind of done the gamut. And a lot of this you've kind of like experienced yourself. So you've learned how to work out while being pregnant. You've learned how to work out and train for marathons or whatever, or mutters. You never did a tough mutter, but did you do any Spartan like things?
No, I never did.
But you did do CrossFit. That's what I was thinking of. CrossFit.
I did do me some CrossFit. That is true.
So you kind of got the gamut from pregnancy into competition and all that stuff, and of course going through just like your own health stuff. Figuring out some thyroid issues and so forth. Apparently, you got some genetic issues in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got some bad genes.
The mother effer gene.
Yeah, which is that's a real terminology.
Well, no,
they're making fun of the name of the gene.
It's MTHFR,
and they call it the mother effer gene.
They call it the mother effer gene because it really does kind of look like that when it's written. But I got some of that going on. But you learn.
So you got tons of experience in all this.
Yeah, and I've worked with. I mean, it's funny as a coach because I try not to lean on what they call the N of one. Your N of one knowledge, which is just like your own.
Yeah. It worked for you, so therefore it's going to work for everybody.
I try not to lean on that too much, although it's impossible not to. And doing things yourself and trying things yourself is super valuable. So like I don't want to downplay it. And I've exercised through pregnancies. I've done all kinds of different types of training, and that's helpful. But at the same time, one of the biggest problems in the industry is coaches giving advice based off of what has worked for them.
Yeah. So they do the keto diet, and they're like, "Oh, everyone should be on the keto diet."
Right. Or they're like, "This plan works great for me, so it should work great for you." And then sometimes
intermittent fasting,
sometimes it does. Totally. So
that
that's an issue too. But I've also worked with a ton of people, like just a lot of people, and had a lot of conversations. And the funny thing was when I was writing some of these questions, was it 2 days ago that we were like, "Oh, let's do this." Yeah. And so throughout the day, I just was like, "Oh, I was just thinking about it," and I just throughout the day I was putting different commonly asked questions, FAQs, frequently asked questions. Yeah. Into our notes, and on a lot of them, my mind has changed over time on the answer, which is also interesting. So,
what do you think has driven some of your mindset changes?
Well, I mean, a lot of things, but I think the longer you do something, you have your initial experience or your initial observation, or you're taught something in school, and so that's just what you believe. And then over time, if you consistently see something different to be the case, you got to change your mind. At least you do if you're a rational person, right?
Right.
So a lot of it is just like assumptions based off of either what has worked for you, or worked for you in a moment in time. Because time matters too. Because sometimes things that work in the short term don't actually end up benefiting you or someone else in the long term. And then sometimes it's just an assumption because it's what you were taught. And we've talked about on the show. I've had to unlearn a lot of things, and then sometimes it's actually, and I would say this is probably mostly. The manner in which I've changed my mind on some of these answers is it's more nuanced than just yes or no or this or that. It's actually everybody's different and it depends on the situation. So that's probably what I would say. But we can talk about it as we go through.
Okay. All right. So you just want to start with number one and work our way down?
I don't think they're really in any particular order. They're written down in the order that I thought of them.
Okay. Is lifting heavy weights going to make me bulky? And usually this is a question that you get from ladies because often ladies want to keep kind of that feminine just
Yeah.
body and not
100%. It's a
kind of like
question.
a manly body, that kind of thing.
Most dudes want to get bigger. If they're in the gym, I mean, most of them, or maybe they're there for fat loss, but if they got bigger muscles, they would not complain about it. You know what I mean? So this is like, I can't think of one time when a man was like, I don't want to get bulky. Like, that's not really a thing. But it's a question, and it's funny because it's a cliche question at this point, like, oh my gosh, am I gonna get bulky? But this is one of the questions where my answer years ago would have just been like, no, absolutely not, never, don't be stupid. You know what I mean? And understandably, because most of the time the answer is no, and we can talk about why. But now
the answer is no, meaning that
it's not going to make
heavy
you bulky.
lifting is not going to make you bulky.
Stop worrying about it. It's just not a problem that you're going to have, right? One way or another. But now, actually, and again, time, man, hindsight, like just time and observation and learning and continued education. I think my answer would be actually a little more nuanced than that. So my answer now would be, for most women, no, you don't need to worry about it. And then for some women, it could, and we can talk about that too. So
just because their bodies may be more inclined to like showing muscle.
100%. But let's first talk about most women. Because like most women, listen, most women are not ever going to get bulky, for a couple of reasons. Number one, getting women to lift, in a way where that could actually even be a potential outcome is very hard. So what I'm saying is, ladies, step number one is start weight training, get a trainer, get with a program, do something, you know what I mean? And that's great, but that's not enough. Really, you need, and I feel like I spend a lot of my time in the gym trying to get girls to understand what their full physical potential is, or not even, I don't think anybody ever maxes out truly. Like, your brain will stop you way before you're actually at a true potential max. But the goal is to just kind of creep performance-wise a little closer to it, And I just like, it's so hard to get most women to understand, like, okay, you're pressing 10s, you actually could be pressing 30s. But like, it's really hard to get them to do that. And obviously you got to be wise about this, right, guys? Like, I always tell my newbies, like, hey, month one, it's just A, survive, and B, look at every movement that you do as a skill. You're not gonna like everything will make you sore.
Necessarily lifting in month one to really
in any sort of like meaningful way. Everything will make you sore. An air squat will make you sore. An elevated push-up will make you sore because your body's done none of this. So it's just like surviving and trying to nail down your mechanics in your good habits, right? So of course, I'm not talking to you if you're brand new, but once you get to like a year in, your body's completely adapted. Hopefully you've hung on, for that long. I mean, you can probably make this shift earlier than that, but a year in, you've been doing it for a long time. Risk of injury is much lower. Muscle soreness is not as much of an issue. In order to lift in a way that would substantially put muscle size, hypertrophy on your body, most women, it's like, you've never touched that. You've never touched that. So that fear is just so it's hard not to just be like, okay, I don't think you understand like what it takes. You know what I mean? For the most part, for most girls to get to that point. So that's number one. And then number two, most women are just not genetically predisposed to that being an issue at all. Most women have a very kind of soft, very estrogenic build. And there are exceptions, but most women, it's like, you could go to town. And if anything, you're going to be like, oh, I love this. Like, I'm a little more toned. Like, hey, look, you can see a little bit of it. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? And that would be after training your strict dip for years. Okay. And again, I can't get most women to even take it to that point. So for most women, it's not an issue. And back in the day, like I said, I just used to be like blanket no, which was fairly safe and covered most people. But I will say, does that all make sense for those people? Like, you really gotta, I mean, to get that big, like what the CrossFit girls look like. Or,
because part of this also just like chemically, their body just doesn't react that way. They don't have testosterone like men do.
And I mean, some of these girls though that people are picturing, it's like, you don't even understand what they do training wise to get to that point. You're not even close to that. A
lot of starving and not drinking water by the time they get on the TV.
Well, that's bodybuilding. Okay,
but that's usually what they're thinking is like the person on TV.
I don't want to look like that, and it's like, you couldn't have tried. So just get a new dream, okay? Get a new fear. It's just it's just not going to happen for you. Okay, but there are other women.
Okay,
there are, and I used to say it like 1%, like there's like barely any, but there's more and more. I think in my mind, and this is just my opinion. I've seen no statistics on this really. Like how many women out there are the kinds of body that just builds and gains really easily. Usually you're bigger people, a bigger body. And I don't mean that like you're obese or you're not obese, but just that you came out with bigger bones, bigger frame, and you can be a short version of that or a tall version of that. It's not really, I've seen it all really. And you have always been someone that is just like, number one, I look at a brownie, I gain weight always. Like that's just how I am. My metabolic rate has always seemed very slow. I can't, if I start squatting in the gym, especially if you start squatting like a serious weight lift, you know what I mean? Like some serious, you're squatting body weight or more or something. My quads get so big. Like I just like,
I got to get a new pair of jeans.
I can't wear pants. You know what I mean? And I am not talking to you little tiny girls who have been emaciated and under proteined and under muscled your entire life, where you literally just grow a tiny bit of muscle and you freak out. You guys have a disorder. And that's a different issue. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about these girls who are big, usually big bones, usually really big calves. You know what I'm talking about? And it's at broad shoulders. Like it's just how you came out. Like you're not a small person and you never have been, and you probably never will be. Which is completely okay. But you ladies, when you come and find me and you're like, I've been doing all the things that I'm told to do. I'm pounding protein. I'm strength training, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, because that's the general, that's what everybody's told to do. And I am so big. I feel so bulky. I feel so thick. And that's right. They're not making it.
So how would you encourage them? They don't want to grow in muscle, but they still want to work out and, maybe try to lose a little bit of poundage.
We all
kind of
need
thing.
to be strength training in some capacity for all these other health, longevity, injury prevention, all these things. And those bodies are incredibly strong. So it's fun to lift weights. They're good at it. And for a lot of these girls, it's a huge confidence booster. Because they're just like, well, I'm never going to be a marathoner. I'm not going to be a dancer. Like I wasn't born for that, clearly. You know what I mean? And it's fun to be good at something. So what I'm going to tell you ladies, and again, there's not as many of you, but there are enough that I think it bears mentioning, whereas before I didn't. Number one, I would say if you're worried about growth, you're not crazy. You do have a body that has a slower metabolic rate. It's more conservative. You probably have a slightly sluggish thyroid. And number one, remember that lifting heavy weights in very, very, very low reps will help you gain strength without as much of a stimulus to grow.
Okay.
So reps of 10, not as good for you. Reps of 1, 2, 3, better. Okay. Number 2, body weight work, Pilates, dialing in your push-up, dialing in your pull-up, a lot of core work. Awesome for these sorts of bodies. Number 3, you need cardio. Okay. When you guys look at those tiny girls in the gym, they're always like making these TikTok videos and they're just like tiny little frame, tiny little body, little snatched waist. And they're like, look at me. Those girls, they can afford to not do cardio and just strength train because they have bodies with a fast metabolism and that they're hard gainers. So that's why they can lift that weight and they have to lift that weight to get the physique that they want.
Right.
This other population, their body grows so well, so easily. So pounding protein and lifting a ton of weight in a lot of volume is going to make you grow. So you need cardio in your life because that's going to help keep you a little bit leaner. You need to focus mostly, I would say, on like low rep strength and have fun with that because you're going to be the strongest person in the gym. Get excited and it feels good, Body
like no more
stuff.
than 3 reps kind of thing, kind of weight.
So you're getting that neurological strength adaptation, but you're not getting that more hypertrophy type thing. Reps of 8 to 20, really, if you're going heavy enough. And you need the cardio. And then lastly, and this is really not popular, and this is probably something that you maybe never even heard before, but you don't need as much protein because your body grows really, really well.
And
don't
protein
need as much
helps
protein.
with that.
Yes. And if you look at, so a lot of these sorts of body types are the ones who are like throwing shot put in the Olympics or doing strongman competitions, et cetera. And if you actually look at some of them, and it's fun because when you're at like an Olympic level athlete, everybody has food journals, everybody has a dietitian. So there's actual data on this. Those sorts of bodies, even those big dudes, relative to other male athletes with a different physique, they don't need as much protein. They just don't. It just makes them too big. They don't need it. It makes them gain fat. It makes them get, you know what I mean? So like you can actually get away with less protein, which is not the gospel message that everybody's hearing right now, but you do very well on plants, moderate protein. You need cardio. Usually with a body like that though, don't go on 5-mile runs. That is just not what your body's designed for.
2-3 mile runs.
No runs, walk. Just walk.
I like that.
Add a weighted vest in if you want a little more intensity or incline. Okay. Walking is your best friend and you need it. You need to get your steps in. But all that to say, it's a nuanced answer.
Yeah.
But for most women, unless you're that particular type of body that I was just talking about, you should be going as heavy and as hard as you can. And it's going to do nothing but help you.
Yeah. You know, I don't like that word nuance.
Sorry. A lot of these are going to be
okay.
nuanced.
Very good. Okay. Is running good for fat loss? Now I want to, what is this? Where's this question coming from? Is running good for fat loss?
Every girl in the world is asking this question. What should I do to lose weight? I think I should run. I actually was meeting with someone just yesterday. I sat down with her. She was a part of my Lives group, strength training group. And she was like, well, I Googled it. What's the best for fat loss? Because she was dealing with a lot of belly fat in particular. A very small frame, very athletic.
Yeah.
Very classic here. Dealing with just like, what is happening? Where do my abs go? Like why I'm like puffy in the middle. And she was like, I Googled it and it's just said, Google says running is the best thing for fat loss, which is hilarious. And when up to like a little while ago, I probably would have been like, absolutely not. It is the worst for fat loss for anybody in the world. Don't do it unless you are literally a competitive runner. And that's a sport you've chosen and you're deciding to just like throw yourself into it. Now, again, I'm going to nuance it a little bit, but I would still say for most people, it's really, really bad for fat loss. Okay. This is the thing. And this is what people don't understand. And it's kind of like we were just talking about with the little girl, the really tiny petite girl in the gym doing her hip thrusts, never doing cardio, going home and eating a whole thing of garlic bread. And everybody's like, well, like I try that and I just get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to understand that different people are genetically like gifted or disposed to do different things. Okay. So you see all these people. The people who thrive running, if you look at their bodies, what are they? Like they're small.
Yeah, skinny.
They're lean.
Usually long legs or whatever.
Yep. Some can be taller, some can be shorter, but they're small, light frames, right? All of them. And the more elite you get, as you look at sport, I mean, you'll see sprinters with more muscle for sure. And then the longer the distance that they're running, the 400 runners are a little leaner. You get to the milers, a little leaner. You look at the marathoners and you're like, how are you even standing?
Yeah. Well, their life expectancy goes down as
it absolutely might. I don't know. It's not recommended.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to do a study on that.
These are tiny little people. And listen, I think people get confused. So for the most part, if we're just talking to the average American, those types of runners are not thin and lean because they run. They run because they're thin and lean. Okay. Yeah. Like
their body's already geared to that. Yeah. Yes, right.
They were born to run. So that's extreme. It's easy to recognize there. But if you dial it back to just general population, most of us have a friend or two or know a person or two in the gym where they love to run. They feel great running. They're gifted at running. They enjoy it. It just works for them. Yeah. Right. And for the most part, there's some wiggle room here. You see a certain type of physique that tends to go along with that. And obviously there's borderlines and I get it. I mean, and there can be exceptions, but for the most part, those are the people who it might be a good idea as they age to keep running in their routine somehow. Right. Now, granted, even those people, what worked for you as a 20-year-old may not be working well anymore as a 40-year-old due to stress, due to the fact that your, hormonal production is going down. So you're leaning harder on your adrenals. And that's why maybe you're starting to have this belly fat that you never used to have. So maybe, maybe walking is a better idea for you than running, even for that person. Right. But for the average Joe, you have this big old dude, like the kind of body type we were just talking about, the big calves, the big body. And like, they're like, okay, well, I want to lose weight. What's the best thing for me? Running is a terrible choice. Like you're not going for a 5-mile run every single day. It's a terrible choice for you. Injury incidence is going to be so high. It's going to be incredibly stressful to your body because your body is not designed for that, right? You're designed to throw the shot put. Like you're designed to do other things really well, carry super heavy loads. And a lot of times those bodies actually have incredible endurance. Yeah. So a long hike, a long walk, they do really well, but it's slower, it's less impact, it's less stressful. And that is one of the reasons that your average Joe has so much success with walking or fat loss because they were not born to marathon. They just weren't. Yeah. And so normally what I say is no, running is not a good strategy for weight loss because most bodies, like the average girl in the gym, like maybe she's like 5'8" and she's like 185 pounds. It's not a good choice for her. It's not. Now, she might get away with a little bit here and there in a boot camp class or something. It's probably not the end of the world, and I'm not saying she shouldn't do cardio. I'm just saying running's not a good strategy. It's stressful. Risk of injury is high. It also cues hunger. So if you are not running if you are not all in other words, like I used to be, I mean, guys, like, listen, I used to eat everything under the sun, but I also ran a sub 7-minute mile 10K. Okay. Yeah. And most people have never touched that intensity. Right. And that's not even, I wouldn't
even 1 mile.
That's not even that fast. I wouldn't go to the Olympics. I wasn't even that good, but I mean, like, I was running really aggressively.
Yeah.
That'll lean you out at the cost of other things.
Yeah.
You have stress and all these other issues, but like that'll get you lean. But most people aren't running like that.
Right.
They're doing that poopy face jog, slow, awkward jog. Usually mechanics are pretty bad.
Yeah.
Plantar fasciitis, constant knee pain. I mean, this is your body talking to you, just being like, this is not,
I don't like this.
This is not good for you. At least, not at the weight that you're at, right? And it's just not a good strategy. There's a lot of other things that you can do. You can walk, you can row, you can cycle, you can swim. Cardio is important for all bodies, but you need to consider stress. You need to consider your particular context, and you do need to consider like, what is my body? Where should I be leaning based off of just like clearly genetically how it's set up to begin with? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and I do. This is one of the reasons that you see just like general population people do a 5K, train for a 10K, train for a half marathon, and gain weight. I see it all the time. It happens all the time.
We're going to transition a little bit to actually to talk about weightlifting and conditioning and everything kind of during pregnancy. We got a couple questions around pregnancy, and this has been not only something you worked out through all three of our children.
Yeah, I did.
And for some reason, I have this memory, and you keep saying it's not true, but you were like doing a half marathon when you were like 6 months pregnant.
I never did that. I didn't.
I have this memory. It's still there.
I didn't do it, and you know what?
That's funny.
I couldn't run. Well, I could have early on. I could only run in my pregnancies till about, and that was when I was having my kids. That was during my peak running years. Like I was really, I was a runner first. Yeah. Before I weightlifted kind of on the periphery and and I think I was just kind of getting into CrossFit because I remember, well, whatever. I was mostly a runner.
Okay.
And so it was a really big deal for me that I had like pelvic pain that was so sharp and debilitating that about the 5-month mark, I just couldn't run anymore. For me back then, that was absolutely like, catastrophic. Although in hindsight, I'm like, God was probably just like, you have an idol and you need to go to spin class and stop. Like, just let it go. Yeah. And, as it turned out, I was completely fine not running for those months. But no, I did not run. My hips would not have let me run.
For whatever reason, I've had this memory.
It's just not true. I mean, I did that other times, but
Okay. So you worked out through all three of our kids. Yeah. You've helped a number of women individually who've been pregnant and kind of wanted to exercise through their pregnancy. Yeah. That kind of thing. So that's a little bit of your background there. Is it safe to lift, and as part of that, get my heart rate up while pregnant?
Yeah. I mean, I get asked this all the time. I'm sure our audience knows generally the answer is like 100 times yes, obviously. But I do get asked this all the time. It's getting better and better. Like when I was pregnant with Liv, our oldest, that was 14 years ago, I would get some serious stares. I think it was when I was pregnant with her. No, it might've been Vita, my middle child, where I went to a USAW Olympic lifting.
Okay.
And I was pretty obviously right. Yeah. And I can't believe the stares that I got. When I was in there, just like people were just like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. Like, is this really cool or is this horrifying? Like, I don't really know. It was just like you just didn't see it. You just didn't see it as much. But by the time I had Cash, it just felt like I got less stares. Yeah. And now you see pregnant women in the gym, at least our gym, all the time. Yeah. And it's like completely normal. And everybody's like, great job. It's like, it's great. So I think the conversation is shifting. Things are getting better. It's at least less stigmatized, but I think we've done an entire episode on this. I think we have. We could put it in the notes or whatever. But like way back months ago, we did an entire thing on health and exercise during pregnancy. But to keep it short, like it's positively horrifying to me, the kind of standard of care and the gospel message to pregnant women over the last century. Or maybe it's less than that. Maybe it used to be better and it's gotten worse. I'm not sure. But just the things that are considered to be good and healthy and safe or whatever. And then the things that are considered to be not, it's like literally just like switch them all. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, don't you dare lift this bag of flour. But definitely eat your feelings and give yourself diabetes. That's good. That's totally normal. Just like
keep that up.
Don't you, and it's like, oh, I would never eat deli meat, or eggs. I would never have it, even though they're like probably like the best source of choline out there and that you absolutely should be eating eggs. But they're like, I don't get my heart rate up and I'm just going to treat myself like a big fat baby for 9 months. Like it's just so backward, So number one, with the strength training thing, you will have the best luck if you have a really robust strength training routine going into your pregnancy. All sorts of things can come into this this conversation, one of which is you need to space your pregnancies out enough so that you can actually do that. Like actually being responsible and planning a little bit as best you can is really, really good.
Yeah.
Really dialing up your nutrition, dialing up your strength training routine, your cardiovascular fitness going into pregnancy is a very good idea, both for habits formed, because that first trimester is really hard.
Yeah.
It's really easy to fall off the wagon because you don't feel good.
Yeah.
At best, you're just really tired. At worst, you're puking your guts out. It's just really hard to start something new and hard at that time if you haven't already established those routines. Plus, you can just do more, right? Because pregnancy isn't a time to PR. Like you're not,
right.
you're not
going to add 20 pounds to your body and try to PR.
You're probably going to kind of maintain, and that's great, but if you're starting at zero, that does make it a little harder.
Yeah.
Although I have worked with women where they really, because their blood sugar was so poorly regulated, their doctor basically made them, and they didn't have any history at all. And we still very carefully, gently got them going in a program. So it's never too late, but you really are better off just having, a baseline going into it. And honestly, you guys, you can do almost everything, barring complications. You can do almost everything besides commonsensical stuff. Like once your belly gets big enough, you're going to have to prop your push-up up because your belly's going to hit the ground before your chest does. Yeah. Obvious stuff. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
You do need to be aware of the relaxin in your body. It makes you more hypermobile. So you're a little bit
relaxin.
Relaxin is just a hormone that just helps everything loosen.
Like because you're going to have a baby here.
Totally. It's what allows for the birth canal, baby to actually fit through the birth canal because it barely does, So, but it doesn't just, it's not just specific to your pelvis. It's everywhere. So like you're just looser.
Your joints get looser.
A lot of knee pain sometimes because just everything's looser. You just have to be careful, and it always usually goes away as soon as you have your baby, which is great. Squat stance gets a little wider, grip on your deadlift gets a little wider. But like, you can do all the things. Like it's really not that complicated. And I just think there's been so much either just silence on this topic or just like needless fear mongering by doctors. It's just crazy. I mean,
don't work out.
Like you should arguably, ladies, have the best nutrition of your life when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Because you are literally growing another human being. And women regularly feed themselves garbage.
Yeah.
And they combine that with being super sedentary. Yeah. And that is just an absolute disaster for your health.
Yeah.
And your health directly affects your baby's health. Like it's almost it's funny. I put this down because I get asked it all the time, but it just seems so almost like something we shouldn't even have to say, but apparently we do. But I do think things are getting better. And movements are very easily modified. And I teach, I love our gym. It's for a lot of reasons, but it has there's a very healthy culture of like active pregnant women. And there's a lot of them. And in the boot camp class that I teach in particular, we always joke it comes in waves, but at any given time, there's like 3 or 4 pregnant women in there just getting after it. Like there really isn't, like you get too warm, go stand by a fan. Like you're going to be fine. It's like, you're going to be fine. You're training for labor, super athletic men.
Okay. Related actually this question here, it says, what can I do for ab work while pregnant?
My gosh, this is the funniest one of all.
I wish we had like a video.
I had $1 for every time some new pregnant mom was like, but what, very pregnant, baby belly, but what can I do? Are crunches okay? Like, what can I do for my abs? And it's just like, why are you asking me that? Like the only thing you can literally, it's like the Garden of Eden where there's only one tree, just one. Don't eat that one. Okay. You can have any of these other things. They're all really good. You need variety, like you can work your glutes. You really should. You can work your, postural muscles. Huge problem in pregnancy, neck pain, and you're pulled forward. You can squat, you can hit. You just can't crunch.
Physically.
Because literally your baby is in the way. And number 2, do you guys can you just imagine your abdominal muscles? Here they are super stretched out. They're on huge stretch. You probably already have some separation there if you're as pregnant as they usually are by the time they ask me this question. And then go ahead and attempt to contract those muscles and just think, what is that going to do? What is that going to do? You're going to get more separation. Okay. You're going to get more separation. It's totally dysfunctional ab contraction. Or you're going to pull a hip flexor because your body knows that your abs can't do.
So it's compensating.
Do, and you're going to tear a hip flexor. All of those stories I have seen happen. Just let it go. Okay. Once you, okay, I understand that when you first get pregnant, you don't have a big belly. Your baby's the size of a lima bean. And I understand that. You can do, this is what I tell women. You can do core work at the beginning of your pregnancy until your abs can no longer functionally contract. And usually it's a little sooner every time because everything's just like, oh, we remember.
I'm just going to open up.
Okay.
Next.
Our job is to just let go, which it is, to make space for the baby at that point in time. That's your abs job.
Yeah.
So like for me, I taught a Pilates class. And so for me, I think with my first baby, I taught till about 20 weeks. And that was the point at which I was just like, okay, I just don't feel like my abs are contracting right. I just don't think I can do these movements. So I got a sub. I think it was like 18 weeks for my next kid. And then I think it was like 15 for my third. So just to kind of, and again, that's just me. I'm just giving you examples, but that's what I found to be true for a lot of women. So go to town until they can't functionally contract. And you will know, because when you try to contract them, they'll do this tenty thing upward like this. You don't want that. So you want to avoid any kind of abdominal exercise that's going to cause them to want to do that. And you also want to be aware of that with other things like planky type movements.
Yeah.
You want to keep an eye on that. Okay. Because that is not functional. It can do damage. And you don't want to continue to train them in a movement pattern that once that baby comes out is not good. Yeah. Does that make sense? So I just put that on there because I think that's the funniest one. And I've been asked it 10 million times. Like so many times.
No, and it's funny because like these questions I know because you've talked about them with me.
I'm like, Gabe, guess what?
Guess who asked this?
Guess
what?
Yeah. And I mean, guys, when you're pregnant,
she was 30 weeks when she asked this.
She was like overdue with twins. Like, what can I do? But like you guys, you can work every other muscle group in your body and you absolutely should. And when you're pregnant, your glutes, your erector spinae muscles and your upper back muscles need a ton of work because of the constant forward pull.
Yeah.
That is pregnancy.
The front weight and all the
everything.
pregnancy.
Yes. Yeah. And then once baby comes, nursing, holding baby, everything just pulls you forward. And it's a neck pain and back pain are huge issues for that very reason.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Wow.
Anyways.
Why does my back hurt all the time? So talking about back work.
Yeah. Speaking of, you're asking these in a very nice order. So back pain's super common. It's not the only thing. Neck pain's really common.
Yeah, for me, it's
shoulders.
Neck. For me, it's neck.
Yeah, and I guess we can touch on that too. Yeah, for you, it is neck. So okay, now I'm just going to speak to something that is really common. You could have gotten in a car wreck, and that could be why your neck hurts. Or your back hurts, or you could have come off a horse, or you could have some sort of genetic thing. I do actually. I have a fused joint in my low spine, which causes me to tend to want to break right above it in my lumbar spine. So that's not something I can really control, right? But there's things I can do to take care of it, and I do. But like that would be an example of me. A lot of
me. I hit and jarred and racked my neck multiple times on the basketball court.
Yeah, and it's never really been the same again.
And got hit hard twice. I
particularly
remember twice, and a third, I'd say. Probably one of my other worst falls in basketball is I went up to dunk the ball, and this kid, man, just undercut me, and I landed on my head. So I jumped really high.
Yeah, that's that compression. It's that compression. Yeah, and it's bad for necks. For me, it was my neck's doing better now, but for a while it was doing really poorly. It was handstand push-ups and CrossFit. Do not.
I remember you did that.
And then you complain. You guys, what in the actual world are we thinking? Like you got these big muscular CrossFit bodies upside down in a super fatigued state.
That's not functional.
Kipping up and down. Now, okay, listen. I was really good at them and they were very fun.
It's
very fun. It's very fun.
My point is, but where are you going to need that in real life?
it's more of a gymnastic argument where it's just using your body in space in all these different planes. But you're right. When in life do you get on your hand, except for when you're like trying to do a party trick or impress your kids?
Unless you're trying to escape from prison.
I was very careful. I was very careful to try to avoid unnecessary cervical spine compression, but you cannot. There's no way. If you're doing max effort 21, 18, 9 handstand push-ups combined with something else awful, you are going to compress your spine. And I swear to you, most CrossFitters, and I haven't been in it for a while. I wonder if they've slowly taken those away. They slowly moved away from rebounding box jumps because of how much injury they were causing. Okay. So I wonder if they have. I don't actually know, but I bet you if you took a 5-year career over a competitive CrossFitter and you measured their height, I bet you they lose height.
That's funny.
At least a half an inch. Because I taught my massage therapist, and massage is how I have solved this. Yeah. Well, number one, stopping handstand push-ups. And if you have to do them, always strict. Always strict. Don't kip them. Okay?
Always strict?
Strict, as in you can do them where it's just this strict, like if you're strict pressing, but you're upside down. So it's very controlled. You're not using any momentum. In competition, if you're allowed, when the reps are high and you're tired, you kip. You use your hips to kind of
push up.
Exactly.
Push up,
and you just so much compression. But I can't remember what I was saying because you asked that.
I feel like I'd be jarring my body if I was kipping. Like your whole body's just kind of jarred.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be really, really strong in order to be able to. And ideally, and another problem that people do in CrossFit is that they skip the strict part. Like girls will start kipping their pull-ups before they have a strict pull-up.
Yeah. Because they're trying to get a pull-up or trying to get a push-up or whatever. Yeah.
It's easier, right? You're using hip drive to do these movements. So some of the problem is that some of these girls don't actually have the strength. They have no business doing the kipping version of these movements. But I did. I could rep out a bunch of strict ones, and I stayed on top of that. And I still hurt my neck. But I think my point was, A, stop doing them. B, I got a lot of massage. And that helped me. But I remember telling my massage therapist that I just felt like a Barbie whose head had been popped off and then like cramped back on. You know, girls, how those Barbies look, they never look the same again.
Yeah.
Like it comes off that little ball and socket, and you're like, well, shoot, you're going to be stupid looking because you can never get it back on without it just having no neck. That's how I felt. Anyways, all that to say, some people have neck problems like this. But I brought up back because I probably hear back the most. And I was just going to say, guys, you can have a back issue for a lot of different reasons. All the moms that I have, every single mom that I've ever worked with who's had twins has at least one, if not more, bulged or herniated discs, which is interesting. So that's the twins' fault. But all that to say, one of the most common causes of chronic low back pain and injury is basically lower body cross syndrome. And I think we've talked about this before, but I can't remember. There's
lower body
cross syndrome. Yeah. Okay. So basically it's just a combination. It sounds really fancy, but actually if you break it down, it's fairly basic and it makes sense. It's basically just a combination of certain muscle groups being too tight and then other muscle groups being too weak. Okay. And for lower body, you're looking at abs, you're looking at the kind of body that tends to have kind of that pooch, that belly kind of pooch, and that kind of exaggerated lumbar curve because the pelvis is rotated forward.
Yeah.
And it's rotated forward because abs and glutes are weak, hip flexors and low back are tight. Okay. So if you looked at that from the side, you get a cross here. These muscles are weak. These muscles are tight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's true, guys. It's like, you can take that to the bank for, 90% of the population. It's a huge problem. And this is just one of many, 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 many examples of why everybody should be strength training in some sort of way. It can look different for different people, intelligently, because certain muscles need to be lengthened and other muscles need to be activated. And it's just true for so many people.
Okay.
And I don't know that I've ever addressed that issue right there. Strengthening abs in a functional way, strengthening glutes in a functional way, and at the same time, opening up hip flexors, opening up that low back. I have never seen that not help someone.
Yeah.
Like ever. So I just wanted to toss that out there. And you actually have the same, how are we doing on time here?
No, we got 15 minutes.
There's an upper cross also, which is, headaches, migraines, poor posture, all of it. Same exact thing where you have chronically super tight, overworked upper traps here.
Yeah.
Right?
Upper trap. You're pointing to your neck.
Yeah, totally. That's where they insert. So your upper traps are like, the muscles that on dudes get built right here.
Yeah.
And they insert on your occipital bone of your head.
Wow.
So that's one of the reasons that a lot of people get tension headaches.
Yeah.
Because they actually insert. That's for me. That's a big trigger for me. And for me, it's the Olympic weightlifting because you have that big shrug. So they get a little more work than they probably should. I can't give it up though. So I'm just gonna have to be massaged for life. But tightness here and then tightness in the pecs, right? Because we're all just like, and guys are like, every day is bench day.
Yeah.
And then weakness in your low traps, which is why in my lady strength training program, we target low traps, which is the muscles right in the middle of your back almost every single week. And it's incredible. It's incredible.
Why is that important for women on those lower traps?
It's important for everybody, but I'm just telling you, these are the muscles with upper cross syndrome that are weak.
Okay.
Low traps because they're just never fired. Upper traps are firing all the time. Yeah. And our neck muscles in the front. And that is how you end up getting that kind of posture that causes so much pain. So it's not as complicated, but again, you just need some intelligent design in your program, and you need a program to begin with, or because people just live with chronic pain. My neck hurts so bad. My back hurts so bad to the point where you can't clean a toilet. You can't pick your kid up. You can't do things that you should and absolutely could be doing. So anyways, again, you could have gotten a car wreck. That could have done it. But a lot of the time it's just chronic overworking of certain muscles and then underworking of others. And it's actually quite fixable.
So
it's
what about
boring? It's boring stuff.
What about me, where I think my neck pain has come from more like past injuries in sports?
Totally. What I'm talking about would probably still help you, but because you know the root of what happened, you and this is actually funny because I finally convinced him to get a massage, you guys.
Don't touch me. I don't even like massages my wife.
He's
like,
so
don't touch me.
anti-massage. It's crazy. Like, I don't know what is wrong with you. It actually makes me mad because I love massage so much.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I love a massage from you.
Yeah.
Any part of my body, I'm just like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. I get one I'm really lucky, and I work at a gym who has a massage therapist, and I do a 30-minute every week, and I just literally pick what hurts the most in my body, and I'm like, let's do that.
Yeah.
She's so good, and I just like the fact that you refuse to receive a massage just makes me so upset. But I think his neck has been bugging him so much, probably due to stress. It's just a guess.
Maybe.
I finally talked him into it. So in February, you're on the books. But in my opinion, in terms of a therapy, like chiropractic, massage, whatever, necks respond very well to massage. With a good massage therapist, and usually you need kind of a therapeutic dose of massage at the start, like weekly for a while. So our, number one, we're just going to get him in there and see if we can get him to stay on the table for the full 30 minutes. And then if it's a positive experience, we can then maybe see if we can get you in there for like a month straight or something, because really you need certain muscles to release so that everything can just stretch back out again, because your neck is probably really compressed. Totally. But all the other things I was telling you, too tight here, you 100% have that going on.
Yeah.
And that exacerbates it. So it's usually a nice mixture of all those things. And I had to do a lot of work to undo the damage that I'm acting like handstand push-ups did it to me, and like I'm a victim here. I know I chose to do them, but
and the handstand push-up thing was always funny to me, because one of your biggest emphasis was to me is always, when you work out, do functional exercises.
I know, but this is the other thing, is that in order to win at CrossFit, you have to do handstand push-ups, and I like to win.
Okay, yes. That is also true.
That's why
those were conflicting principles for you, right?
I want to win. Yeah.
That's funny. All right. How do you live being so extreme with your diet? It seems like, how do you live being so extreme with your diet?
That's so funny. I wrote that down, and I do.
It's kind of a weird way of asking that question.
I know. I'm sorry, but people make
is that how that question's asked roughly, or
like, how do you live? Like, how are you happy when you just eat the way that you eat, like so clean or no dessert or whatever it is in the context? I get asked that all the time. It's really funny. Maybe it was a couple of years ago. One of my clients, we were working out, and it was right before Thanksgiving, and everybody was talking about like what they love about Thanksgiving, or what their traditions are, or whatever treat they, and then one of them, which is totally fine, it's Thanksgiving, but someone was like, well, what do you normally, what do you normally do for Thanksgiving? And I answered honestly. I was like, I usually just eat a ton of turkey and whatever good vegetables there, just like I would any other day, because that's the kind of food I like. And she was like, oh, so you're like a robot. I was like,
that's what she said.
On the one hand, I get it, because I don't think that's normal, but I do get it. And to that point, I'm just going to say, and what I tell people is like, listen, the older I get, the more I pay attention to what I eat or put in my body makes me feel, because anything, a Sour Patch Kid, a piece of whatever, feels good right when you put it in your face. You just get this dopamine hit, and and you're like, oh my gosh. But that's so, and I agree with that. I have that happens to me too. I think it hits everybody, to some degree. But like, that's just momentary, right? And then what? You have all this time afterwards of like craving more, your stomach hurting, your blood sugar crashing, like all these different things that can happen depending on the food. And it's just not worth it to me. I just I don't enjoy feeling that. And so, I think I've gotten more and more in tune with my body as I've gotten older. That's probably true for a lot of people. And that's true for a lot of things, not just food. It's just, I usually do the mental math really quickly. And I'm just like, it's just not worth it to me. Like, I just feel better if I don't eat that stuff, Now, granted, I have a little bit more motivation to care because I'm a trainer and a coach, and like, you really do need to practice what you preach, in my opinion. So there is some of that going on. So I guess I don't expect everybody to maybe be that rigid, and not every personality does well being kind of all or nothing or black and white. I do very well with that because I'm not a moderate person naturally. And that's another thing I've learned about myself, and I mean,
Annie loves her red fish.
Swedish fish. I used to, guys. I used to put them in these are back during the
freezer. You put them in the freezer.
I put them in the freezer. I love a gummy thing that's like really cold. I don't know. But even now though, if I was to eat a handful of those, I probably wouldn't feel very good.
Right.
And I probably didn't feel great before. I think I just didn't pay attention and was more disconnected. I guess I have a migraine.
I almost always feel good when I eat a big bowl of ice cream.
You do love ice cream, or at least it's totally worth it to you.
Yeah, but I only probably do that. Eat ice cream maybe once a month, maybe not even.
You don't eat it as much. It doesn't serve
Yeah.
you a lot, but it's a treat that you really do love, and there's nothing
I
wrong
like
with
it,
that.
but I'm also not a sugary guy. But I will
you're
eat
not.
ice cream.
You're not. You're not. Yeah. And also, the less you eat something, the more it's going to hit you.
Mhm.
Like you can kind of be inundated, and if you eat sugar all the time, you can sort of I don't know, you're going to be a little more numb to its effects. And I don't know, part of that is because your gut is conditioned to handle that kind of crap, or also maybe your general level of of feeling is down here and it's just your normal, you know what I mean? But I know now that like when I don't eat that kind of thing very often and then I do, I'm just like, oh, I do not feel very good. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it to me. So that was one point. But another point I want to make, and it kind of depends on the person, saying this stuff. If someone says something to me in passing, they're like, oh, you're such a health. I'm just kind of like, whatever. I don't care. But the other thing is, I don't think the way I eat is that weird. And I don't think it should be considered weird. And that's the whole conversation about the nutritional Overton window that I think really needs to move.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of conversation in our country right now about that, which I'm thankful for. But I don't think eating mostly real whole food and not a lot of sugar should be considered extreme at all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that it should. I understand that a lot of people don't eat that way, but I think that Overton window needs to move.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing anything extreme. I'm not doing carnivore. I'm not I'm not, that is extreme. Like where you cut out entire macronutrients. I do think that's extreme. And there might be a time and place in time where it helps you, but for the most part, that I would agree that's extreme. But just eating mostly real food and not indulging in a lot of sugar because it doesn't help you to feel good, I don't think that actually is that weird. So there's that also.
Yeah. This is probably gonna be the last question.
That's
Maybe.
fine. I can't. Maybe. Is it the last one? Did we get through all of them?
No, we didn't get through all.
I was kind of long-winded, guys. Sorry, I'm not very good at being short-winded.
Why can't I squat right?
Oh man.
Now I was just talking with our friend today.
Which friend?
I'm not gonna mention his name on live, but the one helping us out with the health community and stuff.
Oh, that friend. Okay.
And he was talking to me. He's like, years ago, I was in the gym working out. This is probably 6 years ago or 8 years ago, something like that, 6, 7 years ago. And my wife was working out too. And then you came up to my wife and said, told my wife, hey, his form's not very good.
That was me?
Yeah.
I can't remember. It sounds like something I do.
No, I think I told you. I told you. I was because you mentioned that to me, and I think I was like, well, why don't you go talk to his wife? I was in there. Anyways, he said, and then so my wife came and told me, he's like, hey, Annie said your form's not very good. I'm squatting and all this stuff. And he said it really hit me because I didn't even know that, I hadn't even thought about form. I'm just a big guy. I can lift big weights.
Yeah.
Who cares about form, right?
That's funny.
And this is, I would say, this is probably way more common. Like people don't know that there's actually some really good technique that helps you with lifting weights, and particularly squats. Squats we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
like technique really matters when you lift weights, right? It
really matters.
But he was just saying, I was like, I look back on that and I was like, just really grateful that your wife had told my wife that I need to work on my form and all this stuff, and I had no clue even what that meant at the time. And
that's so funny. I barely even remember that, but no. And I mean, you could insert. I put squat because I probably get asked about squat. Squat's super popular, obviously, and it should be. It's a great movement, right? Super functional. But deadlift, there's a lot of movements where people are like, why is it what's wrong with it? Like, why can't I do it right, or why does it hurt me, or why? And okay, again, I'm going to be generalizing here, and okay. Can do this. This is usually what I tell people. Number one, I just say, okay, squat for me right now. I'll do it like at a dinner party. I don't care. I'm like, do it.
In other words, show me what a good air squat looks like.
I want to see what your squat mechanics look like. A lot of mechanics, guys, are driven from your particular levers. So long legs, short legs, long femur, short arms, long torso, things like that. Your mobility. And then just poor habits that have formed over time. It's usually just a combination of all those things. And it's actually super easy to troubleshoot if you understand mechanics. And nothing drives me more crazy than a trainer who understands that squatting is good and makes everybody do it, but does not understand how to see dysfunction and how to address it. And it happens all the time. Like that's a really big deal. And if you're going to work with someone, try to find someone who actually understands mechanics and knows how to fix things, because most people need a little tweaking here and there. Now, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in a squat. You have flexion through 3 different joints, your ankle, your knee, and your hip. So a lot of moving parts. But I will say that over time, most of the time, if you're just looking at somebody's air squat, or maybe they got a barbell on their back, usually you can break most people's dysfunction down into 3 different categories. Number 1 is the knock knee. Number 2 is the Ninja Turtle spine. Number 3 is the downhill skier. And I'll just walk through those really, really quickly. The knock knee, I think you guys all know what I'm talking about. That's like where your knees cave in on your squat. It's common. It's really common with women because we have wider hips, therefore a wider Q angle. It's quite easily addressed by simply driving your knees out when you squat and getting good eyes or video on you, because a lot of times women, their knees cave in at the bottom or on their way out of the hole and they don't even know it. And then you need to strengthen your hip muscles, specifically your gluteus medius, that's your side glute muscles, basically. So you'll see people do a lot of banded work. That's great. You'll see people put a band around their knees, even when they squat, to load the dysfunction. But it's pretty simple. Knees caving in, super bad. You're going to hurt your knees. You might hurt your back. You're not going to get a lot of power production, and you just need to fix that bad movement pattern and actively strengthen those muscles. Okay. Yeah. Pretty easy. Most people can spot that. They can be like, okay, your knees are caving in. That looks really bad. We shouldn't be doing that. We need to get your hips stronger. The second one, the Ninja Turtle, basically that's, I've been training for so long, you guys, and I have found that the best way to get people to understand what I'm saying is to put it in a metaphor that everybody gets, and everybody understands the Ninja Turtle, a super rounded back. Okay. Some people in the biz call this the butt tuck, where basically you're coming down into your squat and your tailbone tucks under at the bottom. And a lot of people do it, and some people argue that a little bit of that is actually natural. It's not a big deal. If you have a healthy spine, that might be true. Other people are like, absolutely no butt tuck. It's so bad. It probably depends on the spine. Honestly, it probably depends, but you don't want an excessive amount of a rounded spine, especially if you're loaded axially. In other words, you have a barbell on your back. Okay. You want to keep that pretty straight because it's a lot of compression downward. So you see this in guys more often than girls because men tend to be tighter. You also see it in people who are squatting too low. Like
going down,
like
low.
Butt to the floor when you don't need to. Like you really don't need to. Like if you're training Olympic weightlifting and you need to be able to catch a snatch as low as possible, then you're going to be one of those people that has to train a really, really low squat. And Olympic weightlifters are some of the most mobile athletes you will ever run into for that reason. But average Joe, I know I should be squatting. I'm going to squat to parallel. You do not need to go lower. You do not. And a lot of times the small amount of benefit that you're going to get from a tiny bit more range of motion of a lower squat is not going to outweigh the potential back injury that you're going to get because you're too tight to go. You have no business being down there because you're not mobile enough. And your tailbone's tucking under too much and you're compressing discs or what have you. So really the biggest issue there is you've got a really tight hamstring and or adductor group. You're just too tight in the backs and on the insides of your legs. And you just need to open those up because basically you're fighting a fight between your back muscles maintaining your pelvic position and then your hamstrings and your adductors pulling the other way. And those muscles are bigger and stronger and they're winning. So it's a mobility game. There's a lot of different ways you can do that, but you need to open up your hamstrings and your adductors big time so that you can maintain proper spinal and pelvic position when you hit the bottom. And the last one is downhill skier. And this is the one that most trainers miss. The downhill skier is the person who basically just squats down, keeps an almost vertical shin, and just folds their torso forward because they know they have to get depth somehow, right? Every once in a while, you could have a person who simply has super weak back muscles, and as they sit down into the squat, their back muscles just can't hold that lever, and they just completely
fold,
like a downhill skier, you know, like where you're just like folded over like that and doing the slalom or whatever. Most of the time, however, the issue is not in your upper body. The issue is poor ankle mobility. Okay. So basically, if you think about a shin and a shin angle as somebody comes down into a squat, a functional squat, you need that shin or that knee to be able to come forward at least in line with your toe, possibly over your toe, depending on your mobility, how long your femur is, all these different things. But if your ankle, your Achilles, your ankle complex is too tight to allow for that shin to come forward, the only way you're going to reach depth is to collapse your body forward. The more your shin can come forward on your squat, the more upright your torso can be. Now, naturally, you need some amount of forward lean on a squat. It's just how your body naturally compensates so you don't fall over. But you don't want to be collapsed forward like a downhill skier. So almost always it's an ankle mobility issue. And most trainers do not understand this. This is why lifting shoes have a heel, because that props you up and it allows a little bit more forward lean in that shin. This is another reason why sometimes you'll see somebody prop their heels up on like 5-pound plates in the gym because they're trying to get to full depth with a slightly more appropriate shin angle and therefore a little bit more of an upright torso. So those are the big three. And I mean that most people fall into those big three. That was a little nerdy, but hopefully some of you found that helpful.
Oh, baby. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Did we got through most of them?
We got through most of them. Probably had about 3 left that we could have, we didn't get to.
No, that's fine. We can do it another time.
Okay.
I can keep adding to the list. I do get asked a lot of questions.
We should delete the ones that we've already done.
Yeah. Do we have an interview for next week?
I am hoping our producer is going to have finalized some of those dates. I don't know if it's gonna be next week for sure or not, but I'm hoping our producer.
Okay, we have a couple interviews that we're really excited about. Yeah.
Well, y'all, thank you for joining Water Break. It's good to be with you. Email us, get the right camera. Thank you so much. You guys probably think, what is he looking at? Well, I got 2 cameras. I got a camera here and I got a camera here, and this is the camera I need to be looking at. If you want to have a conversation with us, ask us any questions, get us ready for our next AMA, whatever, email us at RenchMedia@gmail.com. Follow Annie on Instagram, me on Twitter, and of course, download our app. The best place really to get our shows on our app, Fight Laugh Feast app, or on YouTube. Subscribe there on YouTube. So thank you for tuning in. Till next week. Have a good week.
See you guys.
America is a country that was founded for the purpose of allowing Christians to do their duty before God and not to have their consciences ruled by the doctrines and commandments of men. Reese Fund exists in order to see the 10 Commandments properly applied, not just as a plaque on the wall, but to actually be used in business as though they're commandments from God that we're supposed to obey. Our goal is to find businesses and to buy them and to build them up. We want to find manufacturing businesses and use them to make sure that we can maintain our capacity to do things here. Reese Fund, Christian capital, boldly deployed.